Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. I'm Shamela Pula and here's what we have in the bulletin.
Widespread condemnation over Cooper's Pen demolition. Cornwall Regional faces critical neurosurgeon shortage. And later in sports, Kingsmen lose on CPL return to Sabina Park.
Thank you for joining us. Now the details. There is widespread condemnation over the demolition exercise in Cooper's Pen, Trelawny. The Jamaican Evangelical Alliance strongly denounces the eviction of Cooper's Pen residents and the demolition of their homes. The alliance describes the action as cold, calculated, and inhumane, saying it reflects a failure by the government to protect the rights and dignity of the affected residents. It also criticized the use of security forces to detain men in the community before the demolitions, calling it an abuse of state power. The Alliance says the failure to provide alternative housing or shelter before the displacements is unacceptable and accuses the state of again failing Jamaica's poor and most vulnerable. Meanwhile, opposition spokesman on youth and human rights, Isaac Buchanan, is demanding answers from the government, saying the treatment of residents raises serious human rights concerns. More in this report.
Opposition spokesperson on youth and human rights, Isaac Buchanan, while acknowledging that the residents were occupying privately owned land, he insists that a proper process must be followed before any demolition is carried out.
The existence of private property rights does not absolve the government of Jamaica of its constitutional and fiduciary duty to protect the welfare, dignity, and fundamental rights of its people. When citizens are displaced in circumstances such as these, the questions extend beyond property ownership. It becomes a question of governance, human dignity, proportionality, and the responsibility of the state. What happens to families of Cooper's Pen tonight? What happened to the families displaced in St. Thomas? Where will these mothers, fathers, elderly persons, and children lay their heads tonight? Who is taking responsibility for the destruction of their personal belongings, many of which may represent the only assets they possess?
Mr. Buchanan is now demanding answers from the government while calling for immediate support and assistance for those affected by the demolitions.
Images of bulldozers reducing homes and personal possessions to rubble while families stand helplessly by are deeply unsettling. Regardless of the legal status of the occupation, every Jamaican deserves to be treated with dignity and humanity. A civilized society must never become indifferent to the suffering of its people. As a member of parliament for Portland Eastern and opposition spokesperson on youth and human rights, I am demanding immediate answers from the government. Where is the minister with responsibility for housing? Where is a member of parliament for the constituency in Trelawny where the incident occurred? What immediate emergency relief is being provided to the displaced families? What temporary housing arrangements have been made? What support will be offered to replace or compensate for personal belongings that have now been destroyed? What long-term plan exists to ensure that these citizens are not left abandoned and forgotten?
He is also demanding an explanation for the police presence during the demolition operation.
If men were detained while their families watched their homes being demolished, the government must explain the circumstances, the legal basis for those actions, and whether the treatment of those residents was necessary and proportionate. The government cannot simply supervise demolitions and walk away. It has a continuing obligation to ensure that vulnerable citizens are not rendered destitute without meaningful intervention.
Aaliyah Bryant, TVJ News.
A man suspected to have been involved in Sunday's brawl at the Zimise Beach party in Discovery Bay, St. Anne, is to face an identification parade today. His attorney, Donovan Collins, insists his client was not involved and has questioned the fairness of the parade. Two Kingston boys, aged 15 and 17, were injured in the altercation, which reportedly began after a splashing incident and was captured on viral video. The man was arrested at the Sangster International Airport on Monday while awaiting a flight to the United States where he resides. He was taken into custody on suspicion of unlawful wounding. The Western Regional Health Authority is insisting patients have no reason to worry about access to neurosurgical care at the Cornwall Regional Hospital. The assurance comes despite the hospital currently operating with just one neurosurgeon, although 3 consultant positions are approved. Details in this report.
Neurosurgeons at the Cornwall Regional Hospital has prompted calls for urgent action to strengthen the services in Western Jamaica. Neurosurgeons perform complex procedures for serious conditions such as brain injuries, tumors, bleeding and spinal disorders, making their expertise critical in emergencies where timely treatment can be life-saving. Member of Parliament for South St. James Nikisha Burchell raised the issue over the weekend, warning that the region cannot continue to depend on a single specialist for such a critical service. The Western Regional Health Authority says only one of Cornwall Regional's 3 approved consultant neurosurgeon posts is currently filled, citing the limited availability of quality specialists. The WRHA says the shortage is part of a wider challenge affecting access to highly specialized medical professionals. Patients requiring neurosurgical procedures that cannot be performed at Cornwall Regional are referred to other facilities, including the University Hospital of the West Indies and Kingston Public Hospital, depending on their clinical needs. But the staffing situation could soon improve. The WRAH says another neurosurgeon is expected to join the Cornwall regional team shortly. The additional specialist is expected to expand the hospital's capacity to provide neurosurgical care and reduce the pressure on the existing service. The authority says the government is also working to address the wider shortage of specialized medical personnel. Cabinet has approved the establishment of an international recruitment unit within the Ministry of Health and Wellness, aimed at strengthening efforts to recruit suitability qualified healthcare professionals. For patients in Western Jamaica, the addition of another neurosurgeon could mean greater access to specialized treatment when every minute matters. Anthony Atkinson, TVJ News.